Hello, my name is Laura Ammon, and on behalf of the Channel L Working Group, I would like to thank you for watching and participating in City Channel L programming. Tonight we will be presenting 2 more live phone-in programs, giving you the opportunity to call in with your questions or comments to the participants. We encourage you to do so. Next at 8:30, Manhattan at Large will be presented in a 2-part sequence. Part 1 is entitled Update on Gay and Lesbian Rights. Moderator Miriam Friedlander, who is the Lower East Side Councilwoman, will be joined by Andy Humm, who is the spokesperson from the Coalition for Lesbian and Gay Rights, and Betty Santoro, who is also a spokesperson from the Coalition for Lesbian and Gay Rights. Part 2 will be entitled Childhood Lead Poisoning, What is the Solution? North Manhattan Councilman Stanley Michaels will moderate this discussion. Guests on this segment include Dr. Doris Goldberg, who is the director from the Bureau of Child Health, New York City Department of Health, Dr. Edmund Rothschild, who is on the Citizens Committee to End Lead Poisoning, Dr. Steve Schultz, who is the director of the Lead Poisoning Bureau from the Department of Health, and Mrs. Patricia Johnson, who is the mother of a lead-poisoned child. At 9:30, some new faces will present the choreography of Elizabeth Gottlieb. At 10 p.m., the Mayor's Office of Film and TV will present Bringing TV Productions Back to New York City. Now stay tuned for an update on gay and lesbian rights and childhood lead poisoning. What is the solution? Next, here on City Channel L.
Pictures of naked young women are fun in tidbits of Playboy, page 3 of The Sun. There's no nudes in gay news or One magazine, but they still found excuses to call it obscene. Read how disgusting we are in the press. The Telegraph, People and Sunday Express. Molesters of children, corrupters of youth. Is there in the paper, it must be the truth. Try and say if you're glad.
Good evening. I'm Miriam Friedlander, City Councilwoman, Lower Manhattan, and with me are 2 very important people in our city. You may not know it, but they've done an awful lot of work to help everybody in the city. And they're Andy Humm, who is a spokesperson for the Gay and Lesbian
Coalition for Lesbian and Gay Rights.
Ah, I'll get that straight yet. How about you, Betty? You're also a
also a
spokesperson.
spokesperson.
Okay, and here we have representatives from the coalition. How many organizations are there in the coalition?
We have about 48 at this time, and we're trying to build it up.
You're trying to build it up?
To include a lot of non-gay groups, especially to bring them into the coalition in order to pass a lesbian and gay rights bill in the city.
Ah, we still have that problem in New York City?
Indeed we do.
No bill? No rights? How about it? Are there many lesbian groups in New York?
Yes, there are quite a few lesbian groups in the metropolitan area, not only in Manhattan, since many people seem to feel that this is a Manhattan-based movement. It is not. We are in every borough, Queens, Brooklyn, Bronx, and Staten Island.
Ah, you people who live in Queens, Brooklyn, and Bronx. Take a look at your neighbors. You may have some very nice people living around there who are called gays and lesbians. We have them in the Lower East Side, and they're pretty active. They help us on a lot of problems and things. But I think we still have a problem, don't we, about your rights, don't we?
We certainly do. We've been trying to get a gay rights bill passed in the New York City Council for the past 10 years.
Oh,
it was
wow.
first introduced in 1971. The bill has been defeated now 8 times.
Is that right?
Twice in 72, twice in 73. Twice in 74, once in 75, and once in 78. So this will be the 9th time that we're trying to get this bill passed.
Well, that should be very interesting. Why are we starting all over again?
Well,
or are we starting all over?
We're not exactly starting over again, but we are introducing a new bill, a somewhat streamlined bill. The bill is simply an amendment to the Human Rights Code of the City of New York that would add sexual orientation to a long list of categories on which you may not discriminate. They include things like race, creed, color, national origin, ancestry, sex, physical handicap, and marital status.
In other words, when people say to you, why should we do this special thing for you, we're not doing something special?
It's not special, it's protecting civil rights.
But you're saying we've done this before on
For other
groups.
groups, sure.
Like what?
Well, we have, there was a time in the city when Irish Catholics were discriminated against, and they were included under the categories of creed and national origin. When
You mean, whoa.
Yeah.
You're going like a train. Let me take it easy. Let's get back to the Irish Catholics.
Yeah.
Now, what did we do in order to take care of them on questions of discrimination? I remember no Irish permitted here on jobs, things like
Right.
that. That existed.
Right.
Was that true also for Jewish people?
Yes,
Italians?
yes, certainly.
Now,
in certain
how
cases.
did we change laws in order to cope with that, to do something special for them?
We have a human rights law in the city which forbids discrimination in jobs, housing, and public accommodations.
Right.
And various groups have been added to it as those groups have demonstrated that they need those protections in order to, maintain their jobs.
In other words, where they
and their
spoke
homes.
out and they yelled and they said, hey, how about us? In what form was it put on?
In what form?
Yeah, how was it added to the bill?
Well, I mean, each group was added. For instance, if you were experiencing religious discrimination, the category of creed was added to the bill.
I see.
Ethnic
And if it was
discrimin-
national discrimination?
If it was for your ethnicity, it was national origin.
You know, we take
or
these things
ancestry.
for granted and we forget that they were added for a particular reason, for a particular group of people. What about women? Did we add anything to take care of discrimination against women? I know there's discrimination.
Yes, we added the word sex,
Yeah.
so that you can't be discriminated against in jobs, housing, and public accommodations in terms
In other
of your
words,
sex.
there was a time when I would go to a hotel and they wouldn't let me in
Oh, definitely.
unless I had a mate walking in with me. It didn't make any difference whether it was legal or illegal, as long as
Right.
I had somebody walk in.
Well, it's legal discrimination. There is legal discrimination against lesbians and gay men. And until we are able to pass this bill, it will continue to be legal to throw gay people out of restaurants, to deny them a hotel room for the night, to deny them an apartment, etc. I mean us. I mean, myself. I've been denied a job.
And we are the only
being
minority
gay.
who is not protected by the law.
In other words, by
In this
not
city.
putting you in that law, you are really unprotected.
Exactly. We can
And
be
you are officially being discriminated against?
Definitely. All the time. It's a unique kind of discrimination
Yeah,
also.
how does that work?
Because we're a minority that, for the most part, have to identify ourselves, usually verbally, before people will understand that we are lesbians or gay men. Okay?
Right.
So a lot of people are in the closet and have jobs, but they are unable to be honest about who they are. They're unable to come out of the closet, as we say.
But that's a terrible trauma, isn't it?
It is, and
I
it
mean,
makes people
the
less
tension,
productive.
the pressure.
Sure, it makes people less productive. It denies the city the best efforts of its citizens.
You know, this is a very interesting thing because there was a time when we had a law, I think it was a state law, wasn't it? That it was really illegal, that it was wrong to be gay or lesbian, wasn't that? Well, personally, to be that.
Well, are you referring to the sodomy statutes?
Yeah, we're talking about
Okay,
that.
well, they have been thrown out of the courts.
How long did we have that in this state?
Oh, we had it up until December of last year.
Right.
And they have been declared to be unconstitutional now, so we no longer have to deal with that particular
I hope everybody
aspect of-
knows that aspect of,
Well, that affected straight people as well as gay people. Sodomy is just non-vaginal intercourse between two human beings, and that includes almost everyone who has sex, I would assume, who does
Right.
that at one time or another, except married persons. It was not illegal for married persons to have non-vaginal intercourse. I mean, it was that kind of discrimination.
it's a weird,
But
weird
all right,
way
so the
of
laws
doing
were on
it.
the books, and now they're not. But that
Now
was
they're
that
not.
was sexual activity. This
Right.
bill deals with who we are as persons, our orientation. There are plenty of lesbians and gay men who don't. Well, I'm not bragging about them or anything, but there exist gay people who don't have sex. I mean, they are oriented.
Let's
that
get
way.
off the sex orientation here. I mean, we're not going into the details of one's private life, and I think that's the important thing about this bill that is now coming before the council. That is, in your full operation as a citizen in this city, you don't have the rights that other people do. What happens if your people find you working? They have the right to
To
fire
throw you
you?
off the job, and do, oftentimes. The problem without the law,
Yeah.
Most people just go quietly. They'd rather not have it, known that they are gay, and they don't protest because there is no legal recourse for them, unless they're city employees, and we should mention that.
Yeah, what happens?
Well, Mayor Lindsay and Mayor Koch issued executive orders forbidding discrimination in city jobs on the basis of sexual orientation.
Was
So-
that an executive order
Yes.
that was issued?
That's right.
Is it enough to have an executive order?
No, because it only protects city employees, and
Yeah.
that leaves out all the rest of us.
Oh, I see. Those who are not working for the city.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you're a city employee, does that fully follow you through?
It does if you can prove that you were discriminated against on the basis of your sexual orientation. In other words, your boss said, "You're gay, I don't like it," and you can leave tomorrow.
But if there's another mayor who isn't that feel that way about it, he could just drop that executive order, and you'd be liable under the.
He or she would have to issue a new executive order and say that, to contradict the old one.
I see. Or
Otherwise,
they
it would stand.
Or they could negate it, couldn't they?
Yeah.
Just drop it.
Well,
Vacate
they'd have to do some kind of a positive action, I would assume. Otherwise, the law would stand.
I see. Well, so you're really on the mercies of whoever happens to be the mayor at the time. So actually, if you're going to make any changes in the city, it has to be through a bill that goes through the city council? Okay.
In our case, in New York City.
Right.
We're also working on the state level and on the federal level, for that matter, for laws.
Yeah. Well, let's finish with New York City. Now, you've introduced a bill?
Well, you've introduced a bill.
We have introduced a
Yours
bill. How many council people on that bill?
There's the council president, Carol Bellamy,
Right.
who's sort of the chief sponsor in a sense, and then there were 12 co-sponsors.
Oh, that's nice. It's nice to have company when you're doing something on the city
nice
council.
to
You
have
don't always
more.
have it. It would be nice to have more. I am told that some of the council people will vote for it, even though their names are not on it. Is that?
Let's hope so, because we need 22 votes to pass a bill in the city council.
That's right. You need what? You need a majority.
Right.
We are
We must have
43
22.
council members, you may remember. And how many have we had up to now? Say last vote that we had.
Well, it was only passed out of committee and onto the floor of the full council once in 1974.
I remember that was
And-
the first year I came in.
Or was it?
Or the second year, I remember.
And the vote at that time was 22 opposed, 19 in favor of, and 2 abstentions. So we came really close.
That was really close, wasn't it? Well, as a result of that, they got so scared that they never let it out of committee again, right?
That's right. That's what happened.
That's
Well,
what happened. Huh?
It was the first bill in 35 years in the city council which
Yeah.
had passed committee and not passed the floor of the council. And what happened was, between the time the bill came up for a full council vote, the Archdiocese of New York, the Roman Catholic Archdiocese, conducted a campaign, and the firemen also conducted a campaign against the bill, and that led to its defeat.
I see. Well, I'm just wondering, I saw Catholic priests who came up and testified or put their name in favor of the bill. Also, I don't know, other city people did come up. There were some of the commissioners and some of others on that thing. Tell me, do you think that we're in a different atmosphere now? I mean, is there any reason why this should have any more of a shot at it?
Well, I think passing this bill is far more crucial now than it was 10 years ago.
Why?
Well, in light of the new campaign that's being waged against gays, against lesbians and gay people, by the moral majority and other regressive groups.
What are they doing?
Well, they're scapegoating us and
Like what?
saying that we're asking for special privileges, saying that we should be denied basic civil rights, saying a whole number of things, and presenting the public with distortions and misrepresenting us, misinterpreting our lifestyles. And we're not being given the opportunity to respond to this through the media.
They're saying that we're trying to destroy the family. And of course, what happened in the past when you really repressed lesbians and gay men is that they tried to leave quote-unquote straight lifestyles. They ended up marrying heterosexual relationships. And of course, when the homosexuality eventually came out, it caused all sorts of problems in the family. That's the real destruction of the family, is when you try to make people what they're not.
Well, actually, I find there are a lot more single people around, whatever their sexual preference might be. Would you say that being single is breaking up the family?
No. And we have a law which
They would.
protects people on the basis of marital status.
Right.
Which is what the moral majority might call living in sin, living together. but the City of New York does protect people on that basis. It recognizes changing social patterns.
That's right.
The fact that people do live together without benefit of marriage. And we hope that they will recognize the fact that there are gay people and that we are contributing members of society and deserve equal protection of the law.
Right. In other words, your sexual preference or anything of that sort should not in any way affect your rights as a citizen. I mean, you live here, you work here, you have to eat here, you have to do a lot of things of that sort. And all this bill would do is to give you the catch-up rights. Is that it?
We pay
the same
taxes.
rights as anybody else. You pay taxes, you do a lot of things of that sort. I think, I am worried about this question that you raised about the moral majority and other extreme right groups. I have found that one of the things that I think is very different is, first of all, you people have really come out and talked a lot to the public. You've made yourselves known, you have expressed your thinking, you've become an important part of community life and things of that sort. And along with that, I find that there's a lot more attacks in terms of the gay and lesbian communities, a lot more violence. I saw a release the other day put out by the health department in which they said was this special person who was walking around and getting gay people from bars and giving them knockout drops and robbing them, and that you should be...
With more and more publicity about gay people, I mean, we are natural targets at this time as we're just emerging. But as more and more gay people come out, attitudes start to change, and that changes the character of the society.
I think so. I think that, we're finding that people are like they did when they lived with minority people and when they lived with different ethnic groups, and they came out of their tight little cocoons. They found they were talking to people, and they were people like themselves, and they were poor people, they were middle-class people, and they were people who liked things and disliked things. And
there are a lot of myths and stereotypes about gay people, and a
it?
lot of people seem to have an investment in preserving those stereotypes. And I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, I guess everybody does need a scapegoat. And
well, I guess when things get pretty tough, and they're getting pretty tough these days because the fewer jobs, more expensive to live and everything, you kind of need somebody to blame it on, don't you? I mean, you might take away my job, huh? Or you might take away my apartment and things like that. And it's unfortunate that we allow them to fight each other, because that's a bad scene. Well, now that bill is out. How does that bill differ from any other bill that we've had? Is it the same? Is it different?
Slightly different.
Like
and
what?
There's an important change that we've made.
Yeah.
The past bill added the category of sexual orientation, but it also defined sexual orientation in a way that we're not comfortable with now, which we've dropped. The old definition was sexual orientation meant the choice of sexual partner according to gender.
Oh, wow.
You have to think about that one. It introduced the idea. It introduced the idea of choice.
Yeah.
When this isn't something we choose. Not that I'm not happy being gay, but it's not something I chose. It's how I'm oriented. This is the way I am. I discovered myself to be gay.
You were born and bred.
Well, I don't necessarily
you were
born
bred,
and bred, but that's the way I am. I don't know how I
Right.
got this way. It's fine with me, though.
Okay.
Everybody has a sexual orientation, not just people who choose sex partners. Heterosexual people. Within the heterosexual, community,
Yeah.
there are a lot of different sexual orientations. Some people like blondes, some people like redheads, et cetera.
Right.
Those are different sexual orientations. And of course, in a gay establishment, if this bill passes, straight people couldn't be kept out, as they probably are in some cases now because of the
So
ghettoization.
has it been simplified? What does it say now?
We just add the category of sexual orientation, and that's it.
And that's it.
No other language in the bill that's different from any other human rights law.
I see.
That's passed
so
and
that
seen
is
passed.
straight. I see. Okay. How does this usually affect women? I mean, will they have they been suffering any special impact as a result of not having a law of this kind?
Well, yes. I mean, lesbians suffer the same consequences that gay men do in terms of being fired from their jobs and being thrown out of their apartments, being refused public accommodations. But they also, there's a double kind of oppression that's suffered by lesbians because, number one, they're women, and number two, they're lesbians. So they're doubly oppressed, and they have a lot to deal with.
Right. Well, what kind of things usually happen to them? I mean, are there attacks? Is there also violence against the women?
Well, there's an awful lot of anti-lesbian violence and anti-gay violence, especially now. It's kind of heightened because it seems that people feel that since we're second-class citizens that they have, license to go around maiming us and killing us and shooting us. And so it creates that kind of a climate. And that's why we need a gay rights bill. That's why we must have a gay rights bill.
There are these gangs of kids, and I don't know want to characterize them in any certain way, but they come right into our own ghetto, in the village, East Village, etc., places where they know that we are. I mean, you wouldn't imagine the Ku Klux Klan going up to Harlem. They'd get killed.
Right.
But these kids do come into the village because they know that's where gay people are, and they can see us coming out of bars and things.
Right.
And interestingly, they did a study on it, and they found that closeted gay people are much more likely to be subject to these attacks than people who are out of the closet, who are more open and lead
In
more
other words,
open
they use
lives.
kind of things like blackmail and pressure
Well, they-
and threats of exposure.
That kind of stuff.
They can be intimidated, you know, more easily. You know, if you're in the closet, you're living in fear.
And they're less likely to report the crimes to the police. But some of that is changing through some of the efforts of the Chelsea Gay Association to
Yes, I
help.
know they have a hotline now, don't
Yes.
they, that you can call
Yes.
if there is violence or is danger, and they will help you make up the case and get the police
Right,
involved.
they'll take you to the police station, they'll take you to the court, they'll
Right.
go to your trial. It's very good.
Yes, that helps people,
Yeah.
give them morale and to fight
And you
back.
know, a lot of people are subject to discrimination as well. And we need to hear from them at the Coalition for Lesbian and Gay Rights so that we can document the discrimination against lesbians and gay men. Because there are still council people in your city council who are saying there's never been a documented case of
You're
discrimination
kidding.
against gay. Oh, they still say it. And it's ridiculous. They can recognize the prejudice that's out there against gay people.
Right.
It's really kind of an absurd statement.
But I must tell you, one of the council people spoke to me and said, and it was one of the young women, and she said, well, I'm for your having rights, you know, and I will defend your right to have rights and to have housing, to have jobs. She says, but I don't think this is for legislation. How do you deal with something like that? I don't think it has to be put into a law. I don't think, we should really just convince everybody.
Well, then what kind of recourse will we have if we're fired from our jobs? I mean, if it's not a law, how will we be able to defend our position in terms of, well, look, I'm qualified for this job, and you're telling me I have to leave simply because of my sexual orientation? How will we be able to defend that position if we don't have a law of some kind on the books?
That's right.
Stating
You
that
can't
this is
call on
illegal,
her
that
all
this
the
is
time to come and stand in
And
front of you and defend you.
Your colleague has to answer the question, why was it okay to protect the rights of religious minorities, racial minorities, ethnic minorities, sex minorities, and sense of men, you know, whatever.
We also, by the way, in the last couple of years have added handicap
Right.
and aging. In other words, we have recognized that there is discrimination against certain people, and the only way to pinpoint and focus on it is to make it part of the law. So it's not unusual to add things to a law when you find that there is a serious violation of a total group's, rights.
We have to work to educate people that sexual orientation is an integral part of everybody's personality.
Right.
It's not, so they always get into a morality question because they say homosexuality, acting on it is immoral. But certainly having the orientation is not, no matter what your religion is, just being a gay person is not an immoral thing to be.
Okay. I'm going to hold this for a moment. I think there's a phone call coming, is there? Okay. We're dubious, all right? We'll go on and talk while you check out whether there's a call coming through. Okay. Right. Now, suppose this law comes through. And will that change it? I mean, will that stop the violence? Will that stop people from discriminating against you, withholding jobs and things like that? What do you think?
Well, we feel it will help to change attitudes, and it'll be the first step. I mean, it takes a long time to change attitudes, but when people stop perceiving us as second-class citizens, they take a little more into consideration before they decide to
Also, it might be illegal. I think there's a phone call now, right? Okay. Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Just fine.
I'm needing to ask either one of the people that are there, when is this bill going to be submitted?
When is the bill going to be submitted?
Yes.
Okay. I'm one of 13 people, 12 people on the
12
bill?
co-sponsors.
Co-sponsors. The bill was already brought into the City Council, and it was brought in when? Last week?
26th.
26th of March. And that means once it was brought to the City Council floor, it was referred to committee. That means it is now in the General Welfare Committee, and we have a timetable. The administration of the council, the vice chair, and the chairwoman of the General Welfare Committee, Aileen Ryan, they could move quickly, but nothing moves quickly in the City Council. So it'll be 30 days before somebody can ask, the main sponsor, who happens to be Carol Bellamy, can ask officially that a hearing date be set. In another 60 days, within the 60 days, a hearing date must be set. Then a hearing must take place within, what, another 60 days, is it? Or 30 days?
Well, the whole thing should happen within 90 days. In the meantime, there's a lot of work to be done on the bill. That we're not
Okay.
going to wait for the hearing date before we
Okay.
do any work on it.
Yes, so that you will watch for those dates. But as Andy said, we don't stand and watch. We have a lot of people to talk to, a lot of people to have discussions with, and you might want to talk to your council member because
Well, let me ask you-
they're going to be considering it. The members of the General Welfare Committee will be having hearings first, and that will be announced in the papers.
Okay. Can I ask you another question?
Sure.
The last time that this bill went up, why was it turned down? Was there a reason? What was the reason for this?
It was what? I'm sorry.
Why, she asked why the bill was turned down.
Why was it turned down
Why was
last
it defeated?
time?
Because there's still a lot of misunderstanding about what it means and what it says. I remember Tony Olivieri, who passed away, one of the council people. He came to the hearings, and when all the opponents of the bill got up to testify against it, they were bringing in all kinds of things out of left field about how perverted these people are, etc. He kept saying to them, what in the bill would protect that? What in the bill? And they weren't really addressing the bill. They were addressing the emotional issue of homosexuality and acceptance of gay people.
Right.
So it really never got down to the facts of the bill.
I think you're going to find, as you find now, Betty just mentioned before that people like the moral majority and those groups are taking on the gay issue as a very special kind of issue. And as we move into the more conservative and the more reactionary forces, we find that they take on people whom they disagree with and make them the victims and make them under attack. It is these organized groups that come in and oppose and try to influence the council members to vote against it. I know council members who would go along with rights for the gay and lesbian groups, but they are fearful of the vote back in their district. So the big job is to mobilize the people who are fair-minded, who are human concern involved, and to get them out and say, whether you agree or disagree with the questions of gay and lesbian living, the question is these are people who are first-class citizens and they should have the benefit. And the only way to do is to get that bill passed and put them on that long list of people who have been discriminated against and say they have the same rights as everybody else. Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Well, I think we were talking about the fact that once the bill is passed, you see, at least like in every other struggle, we have a handle, we have a legal handle. And we cannot just depend on the good intentions of people. We have to say to people, if you do not protect the rights of people, of gay and lesbians, you have a right to go to court, if nothing else. And we did that with the civil rights movement, right? We did that with other people who were discriminated against.
What will happen is,
Yeah.
I would hope, is when the bill is passed, people who are already on the job will be emboldened to come out
Right.
and identify themselves because they'll have less of a fear of losing their jobs.
Right.
And then the real education can take place, because the real education is done among people that you know, people that you're close to, your family, your friends.
Right.
Your co-workers, the people you spend all your time with. When they know you're gay and they see that you're able to be proud of it, attitudes will change very, very quickly.
Okay. And then we will help the people. And I must tell you, the gay and lesbian people are under tremendous traumatic pressure because they're discriminated against, because they become victims. So we ask you, don't you think we need a Bill of Rights for the gay and lesbian community? Let's bring them up like the rest of us. And I'd like to say thanks very much to Andy Humm and to Betty Santoro, who are the spokesperson for the Gay Lesbian Coalition, right?
Coalition for Lesbian and Gay Rights. And
Oh,
thanks
here
for
we
having
go
us.
again. What was the number of that bill?
1017.
1017 is the bill, and we'd like you to talk to your council person about it. Miriam Friedlander, City Councilwoman.
Sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Hey, sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Pictures of naked young women are fun. In tidbits of Playboy, page 3 of The Sun. There's no nudes in Gay News or One magazine, but they still found excuses to call it obscene. Read how disgusting we are in the press. The Telegraph people and Sunday Express, molesters of children, corrupters of youth. It's there in the paper, it must be the truth.